what's the ecological impact of these bacteria? Okay, a lot of them will function. The number one function of them is as decomposers. Okay, they recycle organic and inorganic molecules from dead and decaying matter and waste. The second, which you'll see here, is in symbiotic relationships. They are very, very common in symbiosis. Symbiotic sounds like it means like mutual, but it's not. Right? Symbiotic means that they live together and either one or both benefits or one or both is harmed or one or both is not affected at all. So in mutualism, which is what we've seen here with this deep sea fish, both of them are benefiting. In commensalism, one benefits, neither is harmed. In parasitism, the parasite benefits, which is the smaller one living inside the cell, and the host is harmed. Okay, so when we talk about parasites, disease, half of all human diseases are caused by prokaryotes. Some of them are opportunistic, which means they lie dormant until the defense is weakened. But we've now figured out a way to isolate these different types of bacteria to figure out which one is causing what. Okay, for instance, here, all right, Lyme disease is caused by a bacterium that lives in ticks. It's transmitted by tick bites. Okay, you see it here. And so, in order to be able to figure out what particular bacteria causes what particular disease, we have gone to follow Koch's postulates, which Robert Koch was a man who lived in he was a German physician. He lived in the 1800s, and he was the first to sort of identify a way to narrow down what kind of diseases were caused by which kind of bacteria. It's a 4-part step, meaning that he isolates the same pathogen in a different diseased organism. He then isolates and grows it in a pure culture. He infects the organism, a healthy organism, by transfer, and isolates the same pathogen after the disease develops. If that same pathogen is the one that he originally isolated, then he knows that the disease is caused by that particular bacteria. All right. Most of the time, the way that these bacteria actually produce their disease or affect a person is by toxic waste. All right. So most of them will produce some sort of toxin. If it's an exotoxin, they are proteins that are secreted by the prokaryotes that produce the disease even in the absence of the prokaryote. All right, which means that the prokaryote doesn't even have to be present anymore to cause the disease. All right, the big one here is Vibrio cholera, which actually causes cholera, which is the disease that can kill you by severe diarrhea. It's usually contracted by drinking water contaminated with human feces or other like animal feces. All right, that's one way to do it. The toxins basically, in this case, I don't know if you remember back when we were talking about receptor molecules and stuff like that, but cholera was a big one. The toxins released actually don't allow the cells to hold as much water as they need to, so the person will actually die of dehydration, pretty much. All right, so in endotoxins, which is in contrast to exotoxins, endotoxins are components of the outer membrane of a gram-negative bacteria. So the bacteria actually has to be there. That would be like salmonella, and these are the ones that we call, the bad bacteria, that the ones that are going to be the gram-negative ones that produce a lot of the diseases. Lucky for us, though, we have also been able to isolate antibiotics from a lot of different sources, right? Mainly fungus, because they are in constant battle with bacteria. However, the problem with antibiotics right now is that due to overuse and the fact that we don't finish them when we need to, a lot of bacteria have been able to become resistant to their antibiotics. there's many threats besides antibiotic resistance. All right, if you ignore symptoms, say like if you have a sexually transmitted disease and you just don't want to deal with it, and you're highly promiscuous and you're just going around, spreading it to everybody, then that can be that's another health issue. But the big one here is that now that we've learned how to harness prokaryotes for ecological impacts, that means that we can also harness them for terrorizing people. Okay, so germ warfare is what I'm getting at. But so it's always a looming threat, germ warfare. But it's not to be outshined by the fact that we have harnessed so many prokaryotes in the use of bioremediation, which basically means we're removing pollutants from water, air, soil, sewage treatment, oil spills, to like sort of help the environment a little bit from the things that we've done to make it, bad. And then we also have been able to use these prokaryotes, if you remember back from chapter 21 or 20, the technology chapter, that we've used these as factories for making commercial products. Like we can go in and make a lot of insulin or something in them, or some sort of medical necessity in these, bacteria. So we've gone through chapter 27, which is the origins of prokaryotes. We're going to move on to chapter 28. It's an overview of the origin of eukaryotic diversity. It mainly focuses on protists, but then we'll move into plants, then fungus, microorganisms, and then we'll move into animals.